You had a reality show on Food Network.
I did, yes.
And I know that you also work with sort of starting some reality shows.
Yeah,
I know you can't talk a lot of details about it.
And been on other reality shows of other people's as well. So.
Oh yeah, you've done that too. But I ran into this video, and I just we can talk about it while we play it, but it's this guy this is some reality show, like...
Okay. Bobbing for...
Yeah,
rats?
It's called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So this guy stuck his face into this thing with a bunch of snakes, and he got bit.
Okay.
And this
can happen.
Yeah, so this is he's a celebrity because he's some sort of cricket player. And I'll back it up there again.
Famous?
Yeah, see, that's
sports guy,
celebrity nowadays.
Celebrity
is a little overused. Yeah.
But it just made me think, like, especially with reality shows, which you have done, and you're also dealing with now, and trying to set up some and trying to get some going. And where's the line? You know, like, people are getting crazier and crazier and crazier. So in this case, a guy got bitten in the face by a snake.
Right, and I mean, let's face it. If he's really a celebrity, if he's making all kinds of money, and he's famous, and who needs to get bitten in the face? Like, I need to get bitten in the face to get on TV. He does not. So, you know, or bitten somewhere else. But the problem with this is that they really, like you said, celebrity is used loosely.
Right.
They reach way out there. It's a super reach around to get these guys as a celebrity.
Right.
And so these guys are trying to become celebrities, and we're trying to enhance what little they have.
But is that why with, like, the reality show stuff, you know, does it seem like they're getting crazier like this?
Well, sure.
I know they go through kind of trends and waves of types of things.
People are desensitized. So it's what was exciting last year is just not enough now. Everything's got to be bigger and better and faster. And the irony of it is the networks all want to believe, or want to pretend like they believe, that it's all real and normal. So the criteria that they put out there is, we want you to bring me a reality show, but it can't be made up. It's all got to be real. It's all got to be real scenarios. These have to be real people with real situations. We don't want anything made up. But behind the scenes, if you show up with something that's not made up, that's not that extreme, like, it's just not quite enough. So they want you to basically present it to them and say, this is real, this is not made up, so that they can believe that, or they can say that it's not. But they've got to know that people are just doing whatever it takes to get on TV like this.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think that it's probably going to get to that point where it'll get too far, and then it'll bounce back.
Yeah.
Because I think that even with our show, a lot of people were like, man, we wish they would have showed more of how you made the sculptures and the tools that you used and the methods and the techniques.
Instead of just, here's what we're going to do, here's the final product.
Yeah, like the old how-to shows where they would show you, whether you're going to do it or not, they would show you, this is how we do this, and this is the tool, and there was a great takeaway from that. And now it's more about fast. They wanted 3 different segments within this 22-minute of footage show where we made a piano, and then we made a pinball machine, and then we made a bowling alley, and all this is all got to happen in 22 minutes, showing how we got the job, produced everything, delivered it, set it up. And it's just too much. And then they want to throw in a little bit of interaction and stuff in there. So they just want this fast pace, and everything's faster and faster because everybody's got that short attention span. And so it seems like it keeps getting deeper and deeper into that, where, you know, a lot of the older shows were, you know, kind of more relaxed. You take away, you sit down and enjoy it. So everybody's fighting for that spot. Everybody wants to get those ratings. You know, commercials are so hard nowadays because there's so many different places to advertise on the internet and everything. Before it was TV and radio and print, and now there's everything else. So they're not just fighting against 2 other networks. They're fighting against 175 other networks on TV alone, plus the internet, plus everything else that's popping up, any ways to advertise. So less and less people are advertising, so they're really doing whatever it takes to get that. And you get these people that want to be on so desperately that they'll do anything to be on TV. And
it kind of, as you're talking about it, it kind of made me think of maybe 20 years ago, the talk shows.
Yeah.
You know, you had talk shows, but those got more and more extreme.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where you ended up with the things like
Jerry Springer.
Yeah, Jerry Springer, and people are throwing chairs, or, you know, they're doing DNA tests, are you the father, you know, on the show.
Right.
And they're pulling out all this drama.
Right.
And I lived in New York for a summer when I was in college, and I worked for one of the local stations there as an intern. And I got access to a lot of the behind-the-scenes things at talk shows and things like that.
Right.
And it was really interesting before the shows because they would really, like, ramp up the guests they'd ramp up the audience.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they'd talk them up where it would be like, okay, now if you're mad about something, like you tell them, you show them how mad you are. And they would really encourage them to just let it fly. And it's kind of where reality is going. It reminds me of that. You know, at first it was just kind of like, oh, we're just going to follow them around Soho. And there are all these teenagers or all these college students living in this place together. And let's see how it goes, you know. And now it's all about like, okay, we're bored with that.
Who's going to get hurt now?
Right. And how much are they encouraging it?
What was it? Was it Sally Jesse Raphael? Or what was the talk show that they had? Somebody came on. And they said that it was one of those shows where somebody has a crush on you. And they brought on a guy for a guy.
Oh, for like a straight guy.
Yeah, and the straight guy was extremely, he ended up killing him.
I remember that, actually. I remember hearing about that.
So I don't remember exactly, if it was Jenny Jones maybe.
Yeah,
that was it.
I remember hearing about that.
So they just set him up, so he thought that this, you know, and they probably led into it like, it's this girl or that girl, so he really wanted to know.
Or it's like they're very attractive.
Yeah, totally. Oh, you're going to love this.
They watch you all the time.
Yeah. So he wants to come on national TV for that. And then it turns out that it's his best friend who's a guy, and he comes on and says that, and then after the show or a week or two later, he ends up killing the guy. Because they had just ramped it up to that potential and just created this explosive situation on national television. That I don't even think it had aired yet. So, like, obviously they tape these things. And so the guy knew, he's like, this is going to be on national television, and I'm going to be really embarrassed, and just freaked out.
Yeah, wow.
Well, and then you got to think back then, too, being homosexual was like taboo.
Oh, yeah. It's not cool like it is now.
Right, exactly.
You know? No, it is. I mean, really, nowadays, it's like, you know, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, so I mean, that had to been like, it's just so
probably
weird.
That was at least 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah. So it was much more accepted now. It wasn't accepted as much then, and people just had that attitude. So it was like a big scary thing, and you know, and it was just unfortunate they put the guy in that position and all of it, and it's like throwing gasoline in the flame. You know.
Yeah, and I remember talking to one of the producers for Maury Povich, and she would talk about, in setting up guests, like there were a lot of like backwoods hicks, you know, people that had never been on an airplane, people, you know, and all that, and she had to walk them through all this, basically set up everything for them, of course, get them to the airport, meet them at the airport, get them off the plane, spend the entire time she's with them, like the entire time they're there, she's with them. You know, she was giving out like her personal phone numbers to like people in prison to try to get them on. Like, this was all expected. And I remember her at one point, she was switching over to like do the books part, where she's like, okay, well, I set up shows on books, and she was so relieved
to get out of
she's like, I'm just setting up books. This is awesome.
Yeah, she was like in the pits, right? That's like being on the front line, with these people, because that's what they were going after, was these scary people. From, you know, the scarier the better. You know,
they wanted the people that
where they've got security.
Like, where did they come from? Yeah, or just the really like backwoods people that you don't need to set them up. They just like
that all the time.
Yeah.
So did you, when you found with your show, I mean, obviously it would be a 22-minute segment for we're building a piano, we're building a pool table, and there was a lot more taping that went into that. How did you find you were depicted and your team was depicted, and you guys were it was a very utilitarian type of thing, so it wasn't so much based on like, you know, intrigue and drama and all that, but did you find sometimes you'd watch it and it'd be like,
there were some hokey spots.
Like they made that seem like a bigger deal than it was.
They did. Like some of the stuff was, which is, you know, like the worst thing that reality producers want is a star of the show telling them how to do the job, as far as how to edit it or what to shoot. And so
you gotta sign something that's it's like when it's on tape, it's ours. Like,
and the producer doesn't at the end of you know, the Food Network actually then looks over what the producer does. So, you know, you're so far removed from that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of it that I feel I could have went back and said, hey, you know what, really, this is not as real as what you should. You should choose this because it's more real and it's more interesting as opposed to this. So they would have a scene where we did something that was kind of, they're like, oh my gosh, this little piece broke off the ice, which is not really that big a deal, and they're making it look like this huge deal. But there was another spot where they had 12 of these 65-year-old Italian Guido guys carrying blocks of ice up 2 flights of stairs because the guy was bullshitting me, telling me they had an elevator and they didn't. And I said, you know what? Screw you. If you want your ice up there, you figure out a way, because my guys are not carrying it up there.
Yeah.
And they were pissed. They're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, we're not doing squat. We're going to sit right here and you figure it out. So he ended up calling all his buddies, and these 65-year-old guys are trying to lug this stuff up the stairs. That would have been good. So that to me should have been on the show, and that was real. Whereas, you know, a little chunk off the edge was like, oh, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
You know. So there was
actually really funny to see.
Oh, there was some fun. I mean, where I opened up the doors, because those guys showed up and they're like, okay, we got to move some stuff upstairs. I'm like, yep, come on over here. I opened up the doors of this freezer truck, and there's all these pallets of this huge blocks of ice, and they're like, you got to be shit. No way. Like, they're like, why don't you move that? I'm like, you talk to your buddy right there. I'll be inside.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So there was a lot of stuff like that where we were neck to neck. They were building this freezer. They built this freezer, and it was supposed to be done 2 weeks in advance. Instead, we show up with the ice, and it's still not done.
Oh, man.
And they didn't do it right, so it had all sorts of vacuum leaks in it. They're in there painting the thing. So the night before we're supposed to move the stuff in, I walk in there, and there's all these cans of open paint. Everything's shut. They're trying to cool this thing down. I'm like, you can use Auschwitz in here. I mean, like, how are you going to open paint cans and there's airtight? I mean, hello. So I had to pull out all the cans, open everything up, fumigate it, basically get all the fumes out, and then shut it back down to cool, which just set us, and it just never did really work right. So there was so much of that where that would have been some great drama stuff to put in, but either they weren't there to catch it on film, or they had their own concept of where they wanted to do it. So this is like everybody, you know, they're done with the day. I go back. I put in a lot more hours than even they did. So they were gone. I go back. I'm checking everything out. And that's when I found it. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on that they don't really follow you 24/7. So they miss some stuff, and they have to use what they have to make that happen. So and they don't want to necessarily go back and recreate. If you go, oh, this is what happened last night. They don't really want to go set that off. It doesn't usually feel the same way. Some of the stuff they have to a little bit. Like we did an airbrush painting, and when we got there, because of the melting and stuff, it had totally melted. And so they opened a box and they're like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, this thing melted, and it's melting all over the place. And they're like, oh, did we get footage of them painting that? I'm like, no, I said we should, but we never did. So then they went back and they got footage of us airbrushing, so they would have the pre-setup for that. So those are the kind of things that kind of get reproduced that aren't real. They had happened, they just didn't catch it on film, so we had to reproduce it.
Right.
So with us, we were lucky, we were presented well. I think that they didn't, we were fast-paced, we had so much going on. They really didn't have a lot of time to make us, you know, that crazy on there.
Right.
And the Food Network, we chose them because they don't make their stars look bad. They're not about, you know, us being demeaning. It's not about the drama so much. Yeah. We're not demeaning our employees or making fun of people. And, you know, we are just getting it done. So they want to keep their celebrities intact because they want them to be versatile for other stuff. So we felt safe with that, and that's one of the reasons why we chose them instead of two other networks that we're buying for that show. So we were lucky in that respect. Now, had we been on a different network and been racier and everything else, we probably still would have a show at this point.
How did you end up going with that network? Like, can you talk about were there other networks that actually offered it?
Well, it started out where Food Network never wanted to touch anything with ice sculpting because it wasn't food enough. But we had done some stuff on TBS and TNT before. We've been on a couple other shows, and they talked to us about it. And then our producer went around and pitched the show to these different people. Well, TNT had shown another show with some other ice sculptors. They had different segments with different ice sculptors on it, and they were kind of waiting to see how those ratings went when they got pitched our stuff. So they made a tentative offer and said, well, you know, we're definitely interested, we'd like to see our numbers on this other show, but we think this is better, you know. And so at the meantime, then our producer took that information and went back to Food Network and said, okay, now TBS is looking at us, or TNT is looking at us, and they wanted to make an offer on it, so we're going to go back to you and say, okay, now here's your other chance. So they were kind of playing them against each other.
Nice.
Because if there's interest from one.
Right.
Sometimes these people.
That'll get you a better deal.
Yeah, or sometimes they'll buy it because they don't want it on the other network. It's a good enough show, it doesn't fit our network, but it would probably do great over there. So we'll throw $1 million at this thing and we'll do a pilot and then we'll lock it up for 6 years.
Oh, jeez.
They do. There's a pilot sitting on the shelves that they're like, well, you know, whatever, we'll film it, we'll see how it looks, but if it doesn't work out for $1 million, we just shut that show down.
Wow.
and that's nothing for them.
Yeah.
So they would, you know, and then they lock you in for 6 years. Then you're not going to be able to do that show over on TBS because you're locked into them.
Huh.
So luckily, when we did that, we did it with the caveat that if they didn't go with the pilot, if the pilot didn't go beyond the pilot within, I think it was 6 months, then we could go to somewhere else.
Right.
But then they ended up picking up the full series, which locked us in for 6 years. And then what that did was they held off on the pilot. So the pilot was supposed to air, then they turned the pilot into the first episode of the season.
Okay.
So it's definitely playing them against each other. They all put out these lists of what they're looking for the new reality shows. These are the things we're looking for. This is exciting.
Yeah. Which my understanding is that changes like every 6 months.
It changes with the new directors. Yeah, every 6 months.
Right. That's what a producer that I know who does reality shows. He's told me, he's like, you know, I take the same shows if I'm really passionate about them. I'll take the same shows and I'll repitch them every 6 months because it's a totally new set of people who are making the decisions. It's like, why is that changing so much? Like, what's
that doesn't seem like.
Well, so you're different levels.
Level.
He's pitching to these guys, and then this guy picks 4 shows, and then he takes up the ladder. Well, if this guy doesn't bite on it, this guy never sees it. So, and these guys are lower levels, and they're changing up quite a bit. But throughout the whole level, they all change quite a bit. Shift from different places. So,
and this is like the network levels.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah. So your producer that's got the show that's taking it around, he shows up to a meeting with like 10 different shows, and he'll pitch, you know, a minute of each one and talk about each one. This is what we've got, and then if they like something, they'll say, okay, we're going to take this to the next, and then they'll get back with it. And sometimes they'll say, okay, we like this, but we'd like you to revise these and redo the pitch and come back to show it a little bit differently, because we think it would go if it's like this.
This will fit us better.
Yeah, so make it look like that, come back and we'll talk it.
Which makes sense, because if it's Food Network versus the Learning Channel versus, you know, I mean, they're going to be looking at different things. Like the Learning Channel, if they've done your show, that might have been more of a how-to. Yeah. You know?
Well, one of the shows I can talk about that we're trying is we're trying to work out a deal with Our Prize. So we're representing Our Prize to do a reality series.
Yeah, cool.
And so that's got a lot of different directions that could go. So it could go as an art show. It could go as a competition show. It could, you know, so depending on what the channel is, you can gear it. It could be a travel show. So you're going to go travel around to these different places where these people are coming in to do the competition. So there's a lot of ways that could fit into something.
Yeah.
So again, should be, I think coming up probably next month, there's a big annual pitch thing in New York where everybody goes and pitches shows and stuff like that. So every time it comes around, then sometimes it gets reworked, or if you go and make the pitches, they might say, well, you know, this is this, or this needs to be changed a little bit. So you learn from that, and then you go back the next time with those tweaks in there. But you've got two real big ones a year to try to sell it, and then the rest of the stuff is just your normal meetings.
Yeah.
So.
That's
wow,
fun.
I know. It's really interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I look at stuff out there that the network's saying we definitely don't want to do this, this, or this. But I'm like, but you're playing it. But you have it right now. You're showing it like crazy. But the problem is they'll go with a show that's not that good, that they've run for 5 years, as opposed to one that probably will be better that's never run.
Because they have an established
it's
audience.
Established. Yeah. It's established. It's working.
Okay. And the same thing with the spin-offs. Like you see spin-offs of shows,
oh my
and
God,
it's like,
ridiculous.
Really? Like that deserves its own show?
And remakes of movies. Look at the movies. It's constant remakes. So the problem is nobody has any balls. They go out there, and if they pull the trigger on something, it's a multi-million-dollar deal, and if they screw up, that's their ass. So these are career decisions these guys are making. When they did our show, huge. I mean, they were running spots once every hour for a month before our show ran, and then they dumped, $250,000 into each episode, and then they had the promotions on top of that. Then they flew us around to do the PR junkets. They had millions wrapped up in it, so they've got to get that money back.
Right.
And they're still selling it. Now they sell it around the world. It's playing in different countries now. They get stuff over.
That's so cool.
I hope you're getting residuals from it, but you probably aren't.
Not like I'd like to see. Yeah.
Typically, that is.
It's especially for the first shot deal.
Right.
It's more the upfronts. And
like if you've been going for a few years and then you renegotiate
it's your new deal every time.
Yeah.
So I mean, for us, it's more like mainly the upfronts, and then obviously any of the perks that we get from that. Other shows we do or whatnot. But the first show, it's they're writing the ticket. They got the power.
Yeah.
So and mainly I looked at it as, do I want to do this Sure, but I wasn't desperate for it. So that's kind of why I got a pretty good deal on that one, because I didn't have to have it. I didn't care necessarily, oh, I've got to get this show, I've got to be a star. It was like, if it works out to what I want it to be, great, but I've got a decent business, I like what I do, I'm fine with that.
You're good to go.
Yeah, that's not going to become your career.
No,
like that
no.
Show. Yeah.
So it was neat and still leading places, but
that's great. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you didn't get to hear this whole conversation, you can go to our website, nolimitsradiotv.com, and go on your shows, and you can hear the whole thing. And I think especially in Michigan now, we have a lot more people who are in the entertainment industry and all that. So over the last few years, I've been hearing more about this type of thing.
Sure.
But you don't really get to hear the inside stuff so much.
It's a lot different
like
than
the behind the scenes and things like that.
I think people think it's more glamorous than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Oh,
same thing with television. I mean, I've worked in television news for a long time. And,
it's a sweatshop. Literally.
It is, yeah.
I mean, when I got flown out to New York, I was on the Today Show, I was on ABC, I was on all these shows, but it was like boom, 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 you know? So I'm finishing up this, I'm jumping in a limousine, there's running over to Dennis Miller to do his show, and it's like, okay, I'm not really getting to enjoy it. It's not like, I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to be on the Today Show, and then I'm going to hang out.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to go do that and do these 5 other things afterwards, and I have to get up at 4 in the morning to get this ready, and so it's like, go, and then you got, 5 minutes on the Today Show to get your digs in, it's not like, hey mom.
Right.
It's like, you gotta watch at 10 o'clock because, get all your information out.
Right, I mean, and every time you go to a different show, you gotta like hit your key messages, and they're like, make sure you say this, make sure you say this, make sure. So you're trying to like be jovial and show your personality, which you have a great personality and you have a great look. Like you're very.
She looks like she's gonna say butt.
No. And you got a great ass, Randy.
You know.
Let's slap that baby.
How about a thing? We can take turns.
Oh, there we go.
But you have a great presence, and
thank you.
But I can see how it's exciting, but at the same time you're like, okay, now I'm going here. I gotta remember to do this and this and this, and laugh and look like I'm having a good time. And okay, it was
deep
great.
down inside you're like,
then you're like, okay,
that's true.
this was so great. Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Commercial. And then you're like, liar.
It was because it was like too much fun packed in too short a time.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have spent more time doing each thing that I got to do. Access Hollywood, it was great. I went in there, but boom, they do the makeup, go on, do the show, get off, and instead of just I couldn't even hang out and watch the rest of the show. I had to jump and go.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't hang out afterwards and talk to people.
You probably don't even really get to meet people. It's like they just throw you on set, and they're like, okay, ready, 3, 2, 1, you're on.
You're meeting the people on air, a lot of them.
Right.
It's not like you're going to hang out with a lot of these hosts beforehand. Some of them we did, but most of them it was like the Dennis Miller show. I didn't even make it to his studio when we were supposed to be on, so we ended up having to do a call-in. So I'm in the car.
Oh, wow.
And then instead of doing it in the studio, I had to do a call-in.
Oh, jeez.
So, by the time it was over with, I got to the studio. I'm like, I didn't even get to go in a meeting. It was all on air.
Right.
So there's a lot of that where it's just so fast-paced. It was fun, exciting, but it just, I love to go back and look at all the stuff, but it's not like I got to really enjoy it as much as I wanted to.
Yeah. If people want to watch it now, if they want to go back and watch Ice Brigade, how would they watch it?
It's difficult. Food Network doesn't really do Netflix and the other stuff as much because they package it. They package it and they sell it off in different countries, and they do runs on different things. If you go on to what is that? The Roku box there.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you go on Roku and there's a search item there, you can punch in Ice Brigade. It'll bring it up, and then it'll tag it, and so that if and when Ice Brigade comes up on a network or on Netflix or something, it'll tell you that it's now available.
Okay.
So it floats through. So it is. In fact, it's been on YouTube quite a few times, but every time it shows up on there, they take it right.
They take it off, right?
Right away.
Because people will like record it off of TV or whatever and then put it up.
I actually got the entire Italian series off of YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it was on there very shortly, and I got somebody to download the whole thing, and I've got it digitized, and then it was gone. But I have the whole thing dubbed in Italian, and at the end of it, it's Randy Finch played by so and so, and it's great because there's me talking. I'm like, oh, it's fabuloso.
You're like, I am one sexy Italian. You're like, wait, I should have done 2 more
So yeah, there's a whole Italian version out there. I think
right on my meatball.
Yeah. It's crazy, and everybody on the show is dubbed, so that's all different voices they had to have.
How did you like your voice? Was it?
It was good.
Did you get like a sexy?
I did get a sexy
voice.
Yes. Yes, there was a couple people, I won't mention who, that were on there that didn't get such flattering voices, but mine luckily was.
They were like, what the hell is that?
Oh, hi, Randy. I'll be right back.
It's me, Mario.
Yeah, that's kind of a Mario Brothers. But it was just really neat because it had the whole thing in Italian like that, and I had a friend of mine who was a private pilot for some people, and he was in some other country, and he sent me a Facebook message. He's like, man, I just laid down, got some food, flipped on the TV, and you'll never guess what's on TV right now. This was like 2 months ago.
You're like, you've got great Italian.
Get out of here. Yeah.
Awesome.
But it was, in a lot of countries, it's just subtitled. It's still in English and it's subtitled.
Okay.
I think I know there's Italian, I think there's
Yeah,
Spanish.
because that's a pretty big effort, I would think,
to dub it.
To dub all that. I mean, you have to hire people, that's a lot of production.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shows some dedication to it to be able to do that.
Right. Well, they have to buy the series right up front to use it for a certain period of time.
Okay, so this isn't necessarily the Food Network saying,
Food Network.
Okay, Italy is a good market.
Right. There's like a trade show. They go to a trade show, and there's a lot of countries that are smaller countries that they can't afford to be producing everything from scratch. So they'll get secondary shows, and then for them, they can get that, they can dub it and run it out a lot cheaper than trying to produce that from scratch.
Okay.
And then they can run over and over and over and stuff like that. So that'll happen in a lot of countries. There's trade shows where it gets sold over and over. I'll get a notice saying it's been released in 18 more countries or something like that. So, but it's been global. Yeah.
So what sort of feedback have you gotten internationally on that?
I've gotten a lot of emails.
Going like, click.
Yeah, right.
Is it like, oh my God, you're huge in
Colombia. We were real big in Colombia when I was there. Yeah. So I would get emails or tweets from different people, or people just tweeting about the show, like, oh my God, you got to check this out, and somebody's tweeting somebody else to watch the show in Colombia. Yeah. And it'll show up in my feeds because I'm searching for Ice Brigade. It'll show up. Right. So and in Italian it was De Boss, De Glacio, or something like that. So it's the boss of ice is what they called it there. Because they were running
that's a pretty cool title.
Cake Boss, and then they were running Ice Boss.
The Boss of Ice.
The Boss.
Yeah. So I was the boss of
I
ice.
can see that though. You kind of have that gangster.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I think if I'd have been back to back with the Cake Boss thing, because I think that's, on that network, I think it would have went longer. I think it would have been less picky. Food Network, a lot of people were like, it's not food, it's not Bobby Flay showing us another way to cook freaking chicken. So, hello, it's entertainment. Get off it.
Right, and you are a chef, and it is something that launched off of your food career, and it's incorporated with food law.
Right. Oh, it is. It's part of it. That's where it started. That's how I started. Yeah. It's to keep food cold. It's with these different events. But with the Food Network, luckily, I didn't see any negative feedback as far as us or the show itself or the entertainment. It was more about just that it wasn't food and it was another reality show or, it's just little things like that. But I didn't see people slamming it, saying, "Oh, those are terrible ice sculptures," or we didn't like the show. It wasn't entertaining. Right. It just was. It wasn't the fit.
It's like it wasn't a good fit.
So it was really cool because in the way, it didn't go because people didn't like it, but the reasons they didn't like it wasn't because it wasn't a good show. Yeah. So I really coming back from it, I was really happy.
That's really good.
I couldn't ask for more.
I wonder sometimes, because people bring up to me all the time in my life, they're like, you guys should have a reality show, because it's me and my gay husband and his boyfriend and our 4 daughters. Right. And the husband and I still live in the same house, like roommates, and people are always like, oh my God, you guys should have a show. Yeah. And I always try to think how would they depict us? They would have to, the drama, the thing is, between my husband and I, there wouldn't be a lot of drama. Most of the drama would be the kids.
You know what though? You gotta think, okay, so maybe we can half and half that, because we have my ex-husband who climbs through my window to sleep on my couch. Drunk. Yeah. So we can maybe half and half that. So you got your gay husband and his boyfriend, and then we'll switch over to what's going on in Brittany's world.
So it could be my gay husband and my drunk husband. Ex-husband. So, it's changed over the years, but, I think that there's always that voyeurism people like to watch. They like to watch people doing whatever, and
That's kind of yeah.
They like
get that. They like to.
They want to live vicariously. They want to be able to see what it's like to do that without having to do that. You know?
Yeah.
Or experience something that they couldn't normally get out to do.
Yeah.
So it's.
I don't think anybody wants to experience anything we've been through.
Well, you never know.
I think for us it'd be like a sense of superiority, like man,
I
those
feel
people
so
are wackadoodles.
better about myself.
Like man,
So glad I'm not that girl.
I'm so glad I'm not her.
I don't know. There's some weird fetishes out there. You never know. Someone might have that.
Oh yeah, we're on the dating scene, so
Yeah.
we've heard it all.
Yes.
We've heard it all.
But you do. I mean, everybody has a story out there. Everybody is interesting,
Yeah.
and it's nice to be able to kind of peek through that window. And you know, they don't. A lot of people don't want to risk themselves. They don't want to put anything out there. And so by watching this show, they can see what's going on without risking anything.
Yeah.
It's like Facebook. You can talk to people and not have to feel like you're risking.
I don't know. I like
They'll
stalking
talk
people.
back. They'll
so-
talk
You do, well,
back.
see,
Well, that's her job. She stalks people.
she's the stalker.
I
That's
am.
true. That is your job.
But but our show is that. It's like putting it out there, and it's
Yeah.
it's safe for people because they can just
Yeah.
watch us and listen to us and listen to our crazy stuff. And
There's a lot of it too.
And be like, man, I'm glad my husband isn't gay. I'm glad my husband isn't going to prison. It's just like.
Well, and that's the great thing about the show is that people can see that kind of stuff without having to risk it. You know, risking it for the biscuit.
That biscuit.
Risk it for the biscuit. That's my little term.
Okay, I've never heard
Risk
that
it for the
one.
biscuit. Really? Oh, yeah.
No, risk it for the
Risk it for.
biscuits.
Yeah, it's like good like coming onto a girl or trying to ask her. You're
Yeah.
risking it. You're putting it out there, so you're going to
Yes.
risk it for the biscuit.
What's the biscuit?
The biscuit. You know, the biscuit. The
Oh.
biscuit.
Biscuits.
The biscuit. Well.
Yeah.
Boobs doesn't rhyme with risk it, so risk it for boobs does not sound as cool as risk it for the biscuit.
I want a clarification on what is the biscuit.
The biscuit is the booty, the prize,
Okay, got it.
the brownie, the
The
cupcake,
thing you're gonna eat.
the nacho, the taco.